What's up, everybody? This is the Bacon, and I'd like to welcome you to the 2017 Bacon NFL Mock Draft. My goal is to always get this out a couple days before. I don't want it to be the last day I can do it because people don't have the chance to ask questions or talk about it, and I don't want to do it 3 weeks in advance because news changes every day. Without further ado, let's get right to it. Keep in mind, if one pick is out of order or a player gets taken, it's such a domino effect league. So because a certain player is off the board, everything changes down the line. So this is based on what I think is the best fit for every team and where I think some GMs are going to make some decisions. So first overall pick, Cleveland Browns. I think it's a no-brainer. This Mitch Trubisky business is not going to happen with the first overall pick. It's going to be Myles Garrett, defensive tackle or defensive end from Texas A&M. He is the most complete player in the draft. He is the best defensive end prospect in the last 10 years. That includes Julius Peppers, it includes Jadeveon Clowney, and it includes Mario Williams. In my opinion, it doesn't include Khalil Mack, but Myles Garrett is an absolute freak. Cleveland cannot possibly mess this up so bad. That brings everybody to number two, the San Francisco 49ers. I've seen every mock in the world have Solomon Thomas, defensive line from Stanford, go to the Niners. To me, that's outrageous. He has a ton of red flags. He's good. He's a complete player and certainly one of the top prospects, but they've addressed their defensive line issues for the past 2 years. They took Eric Armstead from Oregon 2 years ago, and then last year they took DeForest Buckner, same university. I just see that they have a ton of holes in this draft. Tremaine Brock, their starting corner, had some criminal charges, which led to his release a couple weeks ago. I think they address it with the hardest position to replace, which is Marshon Lattimore, cornerback for Ohio State. He is a very complete corner, similar to his corner mate, colleague Garion Conley. The difference is that Marshon Lattimore is an athletic freak. So even if his game isn't as technically sound today, he has the physical traits to make up for it and lead that defense. So I think there's a ton of holes for the Niners, but that's a good way to start fixing that defense up. Number three, I think Chicago Bears would love to have Lattimore. It would be no brainer, but because he's gone, they have holes all over the secondary. I think they go Jamal Adams, safety from LSU. Most people tout him as the best safety in the draft. He's an amazing player and he's very versatile. He can play nickel if need be, so he can help out in a bunch of different areas. Jacksonville Jaguars, I've heard rumors that they're going to address the quarterback position. They're not going to do it fourth overall, maybe second or third round, because Blake Bortles' time, I think, is coming to an end. People say they could go Solomon Thomas here, but they've done a great job adjusting that defense. They took Malik Jackson free agency last year. They had Dante Fowler coming back. And then this offseason they've been addressing it even further. So with Calais Campbell, high price free agent. So I say they go offense. Best player available would be Leonard Fournette, running back LSU. North-South runner, can't really catch, so he's not going to help out Blake Bortles in that regard. But he's a phenomenal athlete. Could be the next Adrian Peterson, and I don't think that that's a term that you just throw around, and scouts seem to throw it around for this player. I don't think you throw that around unless you really mean it. He could be the next great running back. Fifth overall, Tennessee's in an interesting situation because if the fifth and 18th pick, they're clearly taking an offensive weapon, wide receiver most likely, or a corner. So the thing is, the cornerback draft is so deep. I think if Marshon Lattimore's here, the best positions with the best player to the two positions, I think they would take Marshon Lattimore fifth. But in this draft, because he's gone, they have to take a wide receiver. I think it's too early for Garion Conley or Marlon Humphrey at the cornerback position. So I think based on what they need, they don't need another speedy guy who's injury prone. They're not going to take Ross. I don't think they are going to take Corey Davis, a question mark with an amazing player, but small school. I think they go with the safest player, Mike Williams, who wins at the point of attack. He could be the next Des Bryant. I mean, I have my own issues with the guy. He cannot gain separation. He might be a possession receiver, but I think he fits what that team is doing. And if they have a viable option at corner, then they don't have to worry so much about the run game, and it'll really help Marcus Mariota. Um, Sixth overall, New York Jets. I think they'd love to have Jamal Adams. Otherwise, they realize there's no point building pieces like OJ Howard at tight end position when your team is that garbage. You need to start over, and you need a quarterback. But I think that they can get a quarterback a little bit later, and they need more picks. So I predict the Cleveland Browns trade from the 12th spot to the 6th with the Jets. So they swap positions and give them the 33rd pick in the draft, so the first pick in round 2, to move up to number 6, so that the Cleveland Browns can take their franchise player in Mitch Trubisky, quarterback, North Carolina. Trubisky has some question marks. 1 year in the system at the quarterback position, didn't start before that. But the guy has pinpoint accuracy when the game's on the line, and he's phenomenal in the red zone. That'll help. And I think that he's the pick. They walk away with Garrett, and they walk away with Mitch Trubisky. 7th overall, LA Chargers would love a rangy safety. I think they consider Jamal Adams, but they would love a tone-setting hitter, and I think Malik Jackson is that player. I think Malik Jackson can do a lot of things. There's very few red flags. Played on a great defense at Ohio State, but I think he can make plays in the backfield. He can line up as an in-the-box safety, and he has phenomenal cover skills. I think he's the pick. 8th overall, I know Carolina's been rumored to go after a running back. I don't think they take Christian McCaffrey with Fournette off the board. I think it's too early, and the second best prospect is still there. Solomon Thomas, defensive tackle for Stanford, who's most likely to play end in that system. He's been, I guess Carolina's been worrying about replacing Greg Hardy from years ago with a solid defensive end. I don't think they have that player. I think they have a ton of depth at defensive tackle, and Quan Short they just gave a huge extension to. I think with Julius Peppers coming back to play end, maybe outside linebacker, but most likely end, it's a great opportunity to bookend somebody who's versatile but can play and set the tone on the edge, like Solomon Thomas, a really brilliant football player, all around, great athlete. Doesn't have the motor that people expect, but I think he's a really good player, and they're laughing with that pick at 8. 9th overall, Cincinnati Bengals. I predict them going defensive line. That's really their bread and butter, and they haven't had a great D-line in a while. I'm sure they were maybe considering some long, rangy pass rushers, kind of like a Hassan Reddick or Charles Harris. That's kind of the mold that they build with Marcus Hunt and Michael Johnson. I don't really see them doing that. I think they're going to take a freak athlete who's a little bit stockier because he can play defensive tackle. That's Jonathan Allen, defensive lineman from Alabama. He has some slight red flags off the field, some minor injury history, but he's an unbelievable player. He can play all 4 positions on the defensive line. I think they're in a great position because at 9, they're probably hoping maybe they can get Jonathan Allen or Solomon Thomas, so this way they get one of them. 10th overall, the Bills. I don't think they're taking a quarterback. I think that's all bullshit. But I do think they take a corner. They desperately need a corner. I think Gary Conley, cornerback from Ohio State, is the pick. Similar to Marshawn Lattimore, he has good physical traits. Not quite as good as Lattimore, but he's more technically sound. New Orleans Saints at number 11. They have 2 first-round picks. I say they go defensive end. They need defense. If they're tempted to take a John Ross to replace Cooks, they're out of their element. I think that would really set them back. They need a defensive player, and that's going to be Derek Barnett, defensive end from Tennessee, whose production actually surpassed Myles Garrett, the first overall pick. So I think he's a very clean, productive player, can play day one out of that scheme in New Orleans. 12th overall, New York Jets take Deshaun Watson, quarterback from Clemson. He is painfully inaccurate, but he's a leader, and he's a great athlete. Jets have no offensive line, so they need an athletic quarterback and pocket passer. With the state of this team right now, is going to be a nightmare. So I think it's a no-brainer. They need an athlete, and they can work on his accuracy, but they don't have, Petty and Christian Hackenberg are not the solution, and neither of them are the solution for quarterback on that team. I think it's a no-brainer that they take Deshaun Watson. 13th overall, Arizona Cardinals maybe would have considered Watson, but because he's gone, they want an offensive weapon. They're not going to take John Ross, who's injury prone, and basically the exact same player as John Brown that they already have and have a ton of headaches with. I think they take O.J. Howard, tight end from Alabama, who is by far the most complete tight end coming out of the draft in the last 5 years. Really great with his hands. He can play most schemes. He can play against the man and they play against the zone. He's a mismatch. He's not quite the athletic freak that David Njoku is, but and he's not quite the blocker that Njoku is. But overall, he's a much more complete player. So he's highly ranked. He could go to Jacksonville at 4, to be honest. So I think that this is a great situation for him to be in. 14th overall, Philadelphia. Could be Marlon Humphrey, a cornerback from Alabama, but I think it's Christian McCaffrey, running back from Stanford. Ed McCaffrey's son is a ridiculous Swiss Army knife. I know that term kind of hurts people. If you're a jack of all trades, you're not believed to be very good in one position, but he's an amazing running back, and Philadelphia will know how to use him a lot more than a north-south runner. They miss Shady McCoy, and I think they can get back to that and have Carson Wentz upright by giving them a very valuable running back who can also catch the ball out of the backfield better than most people. 15, Indianapolis would have probably considered Christian McCaffrey, but I know they can go offensive line, they can go pass rusher, but Frank Gore has been great at 33, but he can't possibly play forever. I think it's Dalvin Cook, running back, Florida State, in my opinion, the best running back in the draft. I know there's some bad press. People don't like his friends or some crap like that. He hangs out with gangster friends. And people are worried about the implications of that. On the field, he's phenomenal. I think you put him in a locker room with Andrew Luck and the team that they have there. I think he could really be productive and be a 1,500-yard back. 16, I'm really torn on Baltimore. I know that they would like to go defense, but everybody's linking them to another wide receiver. They just took Brashad Perriman, but they don't have someone that can take the pass, like take a pass 5 yards out, do quick slant, and take it to the house. Brashad Perriman's more of a deep threat, more of a larger receiver. Mike Wallace is purely deep threat at this point in his career. Their third wide receiver, like Mike Campanaro, because Kamar Aiken left to go to Indianapolis. I think it's going to be John Ross, wide receiver from Washington. Yes, 2 knee surgeries, and he's injury prone, and he's tiny, and you're betting really against the house by thinking that someone like that is going to be highly productive in this league. But if you watch his tape, forget the combine that he ran 4.22 flat. The guy is the most elusive wide receiver coming out of the draft in recent years. Baltimore may know how to use him really well, and Ozzie Newsome doesn't often miss draft picks. I mean, I think he missed with Perriman, but I think John Ross can really do wonderful things with Joe Flacco. Washington Redskins at 17. I think they're the luckiest team in this draft. They take Reuben Foster, inside linebacker from Alabama. You pair him with Sua Cravens, and that is just a ridiculous linebacking core. I believe that Reuben Foster could be the next Ray Lewis. He's a tone-setting, hard-hitting leader on the field. He has some baggage, but talent-wise, he's a can't-miss player. I think it's a no-brainer. 18, Tennessee's back on the clock. They address the wide receiver position. Now they take Marlon Humphrey, cornerback from Alabama. The hardest hitting corner in this draft, and it's a deep draft at cornerback. He's an incredibly hard-hitting player, and they need aggressive corners. They have aggressive outside linebackers, Derek Morgan, Brian Orakpo, but they don't really have a strong presence at the cornerback position, so Marlon Humphrey can be that player. 19, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They can go offensive line. They can go pass rusher. I think Noah Spence from last year will end up being a really good player, and now that they're projected to have a bigger role for him, I don't expect them to go defense in round 1. I think they go sexy pick. They take David Njoku, tight end from University of Miami, an unbelievable athletic freak at the tight end position, with a decent amount of coaching and Mike Evans and Deshaun Jackson. I think that they can do amazing things for Jameis Winston, and I envision Doug Martin staying there, having a pretty decent role and decent productivity this year. So I know people like Cameron Brate, the tight end from last year. He played well, but they can play two tight end sets, and David Njoku is far and above a better player. 20th overall, Denver Broncos. They can't block anyone. So people are talking about whether or not Simeon's the guy, Paxton Lynch is the guy. They don't have a guy if they can't stay upright. So because of that, I think they have to go offensive line. Forrest Lamp is probably the best offensive lineman in the draft. But they don't need a guard. They really need a tackle. So I think they take Ryan Ramczyk, left tackle from Wisconsin. If you want a safe player on the offensive line, you take a lineman from Wisconsin. I think he's the pick. Detroit Lions. They would love a guy opposite Ezekiel Ansah to rush the passer. I think that should be Deshaun Reddick, defensive end or outside linebacker from Temple. If they know how to use him right, he can play really well with his hands in the dirt. He can also step back in coverage, and he has a really unique way of slithering his way through offensive lines. So I think he's the pick, and he's a phenomenal pass rusher. The upside is tremendous. If they can turn Ezekiel Ansah, a project, the guy hasn't played for more than 2 years in a row before getting drafted, I think they can really do wonders with Deshaun Reddick. 22nd, Miami Dolphins. They could go Jabril Peppers here. I mean, I know that they desperately need corner help, but I think they add to the offensive line. They took Laramie Tunzel last year, panned out really well. But I think they take Forrest Lamp, offensive guard from Western Kentucky, the most pro-ready lineman in this draft. And that'll help keep Tannehill upright because if we saw last year, he was running for his life, half the throws that he made, and he's okay at throwing on the run, but he needs a decent pocket to be really productive. I think Lamp can give him that. 23rd overall, New York Giants on the clock. They wanted Dalvin Cook, I'm sure, or McCaffrey. They're gone. I think they have to go offensive tackle to continue to build to this. I mean, Cam Robinson, I would say left tackle, but I think he's going to project as more of a right tackle from Alabama, is the guy here. They took DJ Fluker, they have Justin Hugh, Eric Flowers. Eric Flowers can move in different places, but I think if Eli keeps talking about 2 to 3 years left for his career, I think he needs to make those count. They have great offensive weapons. They could reach for Evan Engram because they desperately need a tight end. Larry Donnell, Will Tye experiment isn't really panning out. But I think they go O-line. And Cam Robinson is the best guy available. Oakland Raiders. So many directions we can go. I would love to trade back because right next to us is the Houston Texans at 25, and they desperately need a quarterback to take Patrick Mahomes. I would love for us to trade down if somebody wants to leapfrog Houston. Because we need defensive tackle help. I think it's too early for Malik McDowell, and we need inside linebacker help badly. Zach Cunningham plays a little bit of everything, but he's a better suited to be outside linebacker. I think we take Jared Davis, inside linebacker from Florida. People said he's the next Ray Lewis. I think that's Reuben Foster, but Jared Davis is an amazing team captain. He's a great leader, and he's a really heavy hitter, and that's what the Raiders linebacking core needs. 25th overall, because nobody leapfrogs in this mock, Houston Texans gets their man, Patrick Mahomes, and DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller are dancing. He's local boy, Texas Tech, and he has a ridiculous arm. He can throw the ball 75 yards in the air with pinpoint accuracy. Some work to be done. He rushes away from his pocket for no reason. He feels and hears footsteps when they're not there, but that can be worked on. I think he's a great player, and he'll work out there. 26 overall, Seattle. They can go O-line, but I say they take the best player available, especially with Richard Sherman's career not looking so long-term right now in Seattle. They take someone who's just like him, a 6'3" corner out of University of Washington, Kevin King. Amazing knack for the football. His one-handed interception in Week 10 last year was unreal. I think Richard Sherman can turn him into a badass man cover island type of player, which leads me to Kansas City. The Chiefs unfortunately get a really good pass rusher, Charles Harris, defensive end from Missouri. Their guys are getting older. I mean, they lost Ontario Poe in the middle. Um, Justin Houston's a great player, but I think he needs somebody to help him rush the passer to take off double teams. And Derek Johnson's getting older. Um, I think Charles Harris is the guy. 28th overall, Dallas Cowboys. I think they'd love to go D line or corner. Best player available right now is Jabril Peppers, the jack of all trades, defensive mastermind from the University of Michigan. Jabril is probably best suited for a strong safety role, and with the issue with Barry Church gone and their corners are shaky, I think they could use Jabril as a nickel corner or a safety in some unique positions, maybe a pass rushing linebacker position. So it's very interesting where they can use him, but a good team knows how to utilize good players. 29th overall, Green Bay Packers. They need to address the cornerback position. I say they go Tre'Davious White, corner from LSU. This guy is one of my favorite players in this draft. He's a 4-year starter. He's a hardworking player. He has a knack for the football. He's great in coverage. More of a zone guy than a man guy. But I think they can. Green Bay plays a zone, so I think it's no problem. And he's a badass football player for a corner, so I think it's a no-brainer decision. Pittsburgh Steelers. People are linking them to take a corner, but they took a corner first round last year, and they lost Lawrence Timmons. It'll be interesting what they do with linebacker or defensive end, but James Harrison is getting old. I mean, he's been old for a long time, and I think if they can turn the Jets on T.J. Watt, outside linebacker / defensive end from Wisconsin, that could really be a power move for Pittsburgh. At this point in his career, he's a better player than his brother J.J. Watt. And I think he is a high motor. He's a really big hitter, and he's a really smart football player. And the fact that his brother panned out really well, obviously you know that it's in the genes. I think he'll pan out really well for Pittsburgh. The 31st overall pick, Atlanta Falcons. Corey Davis, wide receiver, Western Michigan, still on the board. People linking him to the next Terrell Owens. It's a small school, so it's hard to tell, but he's an absolute freak. He's an amazing route runner, amazing hands. He understands the plays. They built a scheme around him. He had 1,500 yards and 15 touchdowns last year. He's unreal. They compare him with Julio Jones, put Mohamed Sanu in the slot, rotating with Taylor Gabriel. That's a hell of a run that they're willing to make. So I say that that's the pick. And New Orleans Saints, defense again, Budda Baker. One of the most exciting players in the draft. Strong safety from Washington. I think him and Kenny Vaccaro can really help shore up that defensive backfield. And Budda Baker's always around the football. He throws his body around like a human torpedo. Really, really exciting time. And they for New Orleans because they're building their defense with really smart picks. Now this draft is really, really deep. These are just a list of guys that should and could easily be first-round players, but they're not on my list. Obi Melifonwu, safety, UConn, or Dory Jackson. I love this guy, corner from USC. Amazing punt returner, too. Garrett Bowles, offensive tackle from Utah, not a first-round pick. You know what? Athletically, there's nothing there. The guy moves super awkwardly. He's 25 years old. Evan Engram, tight end from Ole Miss. Amazing upside. Could be very similar to Njoku. Taco Charlton, defensive end from Michigan. Tak McKinley, defensive end from UCLA. Malik McDowell, DT from Michigan State. Chidi Azue, from cornerback from Colorado. Teez Tabor from Florida. Alvin Kamara, from running back from Tennessee. Zach Cunningham, linebacker from Vanderbilt. These are all first-round talent. That's how deep this draft is. So let's hope that I'm even a fraction right. And I can't wait for Thursday. If you guys have any questions, leave a comment below, and I'm happy to respond. I can just talk draft all day. And if you want to rip on the Chiefs or the Broncos or the Chargers, I'm all for that. I would absolutely love some comments about that. Later, guys.